Today, my guest, you know him from ECW, from WWE, from TNA. He is a legend in professional wrestling. He is a former two-time ECW Tag Team Champion and two-time WWE Cruiserweight Champion. Whether you know him as Little Guido or Nunzio, he is a true professional wrestling legend, and I am honored to have him on the show today. Guido, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much for having me. I
I
appreciate
truly appreciate the time, sir. So, going back, were you a fan of professional wrestling? Did you do sports before you got into professional wrestling, or what drew you into this crazy industry?
Well, I was a fan first. I did do sports. I wrestled in high school. I wrestled in middle school. I did okay. I was one of the captains of my wrestling team. I wasn't a phenomenal wrestler, but I did that. I played football too. But before all that, I became a wrestling fan when I was like 10, 11 years old. And my father, I used to watch it on channel. I think it was 9 at the time, WR, like late at night, and then early in the morning next day on a Saturday. And then, at that time it was like Pedro Morales, Don Morocco, like Jimmy Snooker. This is like 82, 83.
Hmm.
So I started watching it then, and then he would take me down to the county center and then Madison Square Garden, and we never really did the Meadowlands over here. We never really did that, but most of the other shows, not Nassau Coliseum, because I was in Long Island, and that was it. I just became a fan ever since then. Watched Superstar Billy Graham, and then I always wanted to be a wrestler, not really knowing at the time how I would ever get into it because it's not like today. Now there's 90, you hit a button, you get 92 schools. I was lucky enough to run into somebody that was a pro wrestler, and that was because of amateur wrestling. That's when I was wrestling amateur. I met this person.
How was it being a wrestling fan in that area at that time? Because it was such a prominent wrestling hotbed at that time, and being as what it was and as it was growing, did it make you fall in love so much faster?
Well, I started watching when I was like already 10, 11 years old. That was 82. Like I said, 81, 82. The first WrestleMania was like 84, wasn't it? So
Hmm.
like I was already a fan, and then the Hulkamania stuff came. So like I was there for that too. That was this January 23rd, December 26th for the two dates when the Sheik won it, and then when he lost it. And me and my brother and my father were there. My brother was there for one of them because my dad was a bigger fan. Um, so that was when I was only a fan like 4 years. So that's now WrestleMania started. Now that became a huge huge thing. So I was watching it heavy those years. Like WrestleMania 1, 2, 3. I was growing up, but then once I got into high school, I did get away from it a little bit. I got away from it as far as watching it. Because I was doing playing football and stuff like that, and then I was graduated. Then in my senior year in high school, I went to a wrestling camp in Stroudsburg for extra practice for the wrestling season, and I met this guy named Jerry Fazio, and he was a professional wrestler. He was one of the executioners, but I didn't know that at the time. But somebody told me there's a pro wrestler on another floor, and I was like, whoa. They told me because they know I was the fan. These are friends of mine. I'm like, they're like the executioner, and I was like, wow, what, really? Wait, not at the time knowing there was 82 of them. It wasn't the way, but everyone's like going to clam, 90 people would do it, but you hear the name. But he
Hmm.
did do it for WWE, Jerry Fazio. He did do it, he did it for WWE, but there was so many of them.
Hmm.
And then that was it. And then I met him, and, he said he knew about a wrestling school. When I graduate, to give him a call. I couldn't do it because I was still in high school at that time. I was
Hmm.
going to wrestling camp at that time. And he sent me up to Gino Caruso School up in Parsippany, New Jersey.
Had that chance encounter not happened, do you think that you would have still pursued professional wrestling?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I don't think so, only because at that time I wasn't thinking about being a wrestler anymore. Like I kind
Hmm.
of stopped watching it. I was kind of thinking about what I'm gonna do in my life, afterwards. I don't know if I was going to college. I don't know what that was doing. And then when I went to the wrestling camp and met him, and then when he gave me the phone number, he goes, "Listen, I can't talk to you. You call me when you graduate high school." He goes, "I know of this wrestling school and blah blah blah." So once he did that, I had a connection to it. I just followed through with it, not even knowing. what I was doing. I went up
Hmm.
there, but so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't go to practice that day. I went up and met Rocky Jones. I met Kodiak Bear. I met Gino Caruso, and they were just starting this wrestling school. It's still there. Um, and then, we made the deal. I told them I want to be a wrestler and everything, and they gave me the price, and and then that was it. I went home and I started working, and I was already, I think, working like a pizzeria, and because I graduated high school now, so I was doing
Hmm.
off and on working at a pizza place and bartending and do that kind of thing, you know. So, and that's how it happened, and I was bartending and making pizzas how I paid for the wrestling school.
How long after that interaction did it switch in your head that this is exactly what I'm going to do? And was there any stopping you once you made your mind up to pursue this?
Well, no. Once I started doing it, I don't think I ever thought in my mind, that I would go, maybe to WWE, just because looking at the sport back then, it wasn't like not knowing how things were going to change, how ECW was going to come along. This is way
Hmm.
before ECW. This is 1991. I started training, so I mean, it worked out for me because from I started training to do pro wrestling, and I started doing a lot of shows with Kodiak Bear and stuff. And then somebody called the wrestling school. It was like now it's like 1993 or 94, and it was looking for a tryout to go to Japan, and they were looking for pro wrestlers, and I got selected to go to Nashville. Now, for the shoot wrestling, but I didn't know what shoot wrestling was at that time. I knew that, I knew how to wrestle, but I didn't know couldn't wrestle with these guys because they were doing submissions, which meant, when you do amateur wrestling, you don't go more than 45 degrees. Well, the whole idea of that wrestling, which wasn't known at the time, this is 1994. This is UWFI. I never even heard of this kind of wrestling, but I had the wrestling background. So I went through their camp. They stretch you and whatever. And I didn't know that was a thing then. I didn't know about
Hmm.
it, but it just kept tapping out, but they wouldn't get off you. They just kept changing the other moves and they, didn't matter how good I was wrestling. This guy was just as good as me, but he knew all these submission and choke holds and all these crazy things. So I made it through that day, and then I made it through the whole camp. And believe it or not, I think I was the only one out of the 12 guys that they kept full time, and they moved me to Nashville, Tennessee, and I started getting paid to train with Gene Leidick, Billy Robinson, and Billy Scott, and they were paying for my apartment and stuff, paying me to go to Japan every month, and that was my job. So I got in that story because you said there was really no time for me to not think about it. And then after Japan, that kind of closed down. And once I came home, I already had, I knew Tommy Dream and a bunch of those guys, and ECW was getting going. And I went to work for Carlos Colon when I came home from Japan, and I met Pablo Marquez. And Pablo knew I knew those guys, and he's like, "Oh, I work for ECW. I see Dreamer. I see Taz." I said, "Oh, tell those guys I said hello." So he did that. He said it, and I saw him the next month in Puerto Rico, and he's like, "Oh, Dreamer said to give him a call, come down, give him a call or whatever." And that was my connection there. And then once I went there, they introduced you to Paul Heyman, and I wrestled as Damian Stone in ECW for a while, and then Paulie gave me a little Guido character, and that pretty much rolled that to the end. So I didn't have really a chance. It just kind of
Hmm.
snowballed, kept doing things, which led
What
into WWE.
what was your first initial thoughts of getting into professional wrestling once you started training? Was there anything that came natural for you, or that may have been a little harder for you to get used to?
No, I wouldn't say it came natural to me. I mean, you can't have two left feet. I mean, me
Yeah.
being an athlete and, wrestling, for 7, 8 years of my life before playing football. I actually played lacrosse for a couple of years, not many, and I was a lot younger. Soccer, I love that. I mean, believe it or not, I love playing like wiffle ball, or, I love playing, um, not baseball. I suck at baseball. But so I think I was an athlete, but I wasn't like outstanding. But you can't have two left feet either. There's some people that just can't do it. They just can't do it. There's some people that it comes natural. Would I say it came natural to me? No. Did some stuff come natural to me? Yes. But I had good coaches as far as when it comes to the psychology of it. Gino Caruso, Kodiak Bear, Jerry Faggio. These are old school guys that when I went to the school, I started from the beginning. They taught me how the flow of a match goes, how the baby face shines, how you get your heat, you throw your hope spots in to keep the baby face alive, keep them going. The go home. They showed me the structure of the match. Now a lot of times with some of the schools, a lot of guys go and they just kind of get in the ring and who's showing them what to do. You don't know. You don't know. There's so many schools. I'm just saying. I'm not just saying
Hmm.
my area. I mean, around the world. All these guys are having schools. And I did one for a couple of years when I left WWE, and it was all right. But after a while, it's not. It's not steady. So,
Yeah.
they're trying to get guys who can't do it, and then you're running out of guys, and then you have a lot of competition. I had a school in Jersey. There's so many schools around, so
Hmm.
like it's not like you had a school in Phoenix. There's no other schools in Phoenix,
Yeah.
where I live, and we're here in New York. There's a lot of schools and stuff like that. So, but that's it. I think some people are not made for this,
Hmm.
and they're just not going to make it.
After you.
In order to make it, if you have all three things, would be great. You got to be a good worker, a
Hmm.
good mouthpiece, and have a good physique. If you got all three, you're ahead of the game. But you could have one and become the biggest name in the business. Look, like Hogan too. Everybody knows. Got great physique, great on the mic. Did his stuff, but it wasn't his wrestling in the ring that made him who he is. It was
Hmm.
all his persona and everything. The way he could bring you in through the microphone, mostly. He looked great and everything, and everybody well, you got through his matches. So
Hmm.
so unfortunately, you could have one, but if you do that one out of those three, phenomenal, you can make it. But if you have all three, you have a good chance of making it. Those are what I believe are the three big things. Good on the mic, because that's very important. You got to be able to talk. Look
Hmm.
good physique helps, and actually be able to work in the ring. You know,
I agree.
you don't need all three. It's not like you need all three.
When you were done training, did you stay in that general area? And when do you feel like you started to get your name out there?
Well, what do you mean stay in the general area? Like when I got that phone call and I went for the tryout in Nashville, I moved. They accepted me and I moved right to Nashville. I moved out of New York. So and then when I came home, I started with I went to Puerto Rico. When I came home living with my parents, I was still living
Hmm.
home because I moved. I left to go to Tennessee. I was only like 24 at the time. So then I was wrestling a couple of years before that. So I was living home. I wasn't doing what I want to do. Um, so no, so once I came home, it kind of ran into doing with Pablo, and then I started with the ECW, and I was still bartending at that time too. So I was still getting going with ECW. So and that's when it was just becoming Extreme Championship Wrestling. Now we're going into like late 95, 96. It's already Extreme Championship Wrestling.
Hmm.
Um, that's when I started when that closed. So it never really slowed down. It was like I said, I didn't have a chance to think, oh, do I want to do this or not? I never thought I didn't. I just
Yeah.
never think about anything else because one thing came and one thing left, and it just kept going, you know, until ECW closed down. Once
When when
that
ECW came into your life, what was your initial thoughts of that? And was it as crazy at that point in time as everyone says it is with the crowds and the atmosphere and the
Oh
environment?
yeah, when I was them, when I got involved, that's when it was just crazy times. Like I said, late '95, early '96. Look
Hmm.
at that. I got introduced to as I worked there a couple months as Damian Stone, just working whatever, and then they introduced me in Lost Battalion Hall in Queens, and with JT Smith's partner, and then they also introduced Devon Dudley that night, who came out and we wrestled them, and they beat the shit out of us with chairs. That was my debut, and that's when I became JT Smith's cousin. So ECW, was good to me. There was a start of my career. It was the first time I had people like so once Paulie gave me the name and I started working all the shows. He started putting me on TV with JT. After a couple of months, it was the first time I was showing up at shows and people knew who you were going into the buildings and was like your music would hit and the fans would know who's coming out. So I was getting used to getting little popularity with the people following what you did the week before, leaving the building, and then somebody come up and say, "Oh, I saw you on your TV a couple of weeks ago. What you did with this guy, or the pizza promo that you did." Now it's just starting. I wasn't used to that. I wasn't hearing it. I was never on TV before. I didn't know how that was. And that was also when you would go to a store sometimes. You were starting to have, you go to a store and there's an ECW fan and it was crazy. Start getting red knives in public. It's a different life. It's just
Hmm.
things like that just happen and you just take it on. You're not realizing it. Like I never even thought about it, you know. Not thought about it, but not thinking like after I started with ECW that's going to start happening. It wasn't just, I was just doing it.
Working with ECW, did that make you fall in love with professional wrestling even more because of the tight knit group that it was, and the way that the fans interacted with everybody, and that they truly loved what you guys were doing and loved professional wrestling? Did that make you fall in love with the industry even more and want to pursue this even harder?
Yeah, well, yeah. At that point, I wanted to pursue it, and ECW was yeah. You said that's violent, yeah. But one thing, people, let me bring you back because you asked me about it. Is it as crazy as everybody said? The TV tapings they do the when you watch the TV on the TV, yes,
Hmm.
3/4 of the show is chairs and crazy shit. You get the flames of all. But when you go to the house shows that we do, most of those matches are all regular wrestling matches, but the Sabu flips and getting the RVDs out there doing his stuff. Everybody's doing that stuff. But when you watch the TV, then you'll get New Jack with the garbage, the gangsters, and then, I was in plenty of those matches with Tracy and the music playing and him whapping us all with the stuff. But if unless you were in that match on the house shows, you pretty much went out there and did a regular old school match, and the fans always were great for it. So yeah. So like you were asking me earlier, it wasn't. I don't. You can't say it wasn't violent. It was violent. I mean, when you had to get hit with the cane, with the hammer, and get beat, and hit with the chairs, and I did plenty of matches with New Jack, and he was, to tell you the truth, he was as good as he could be with me, but he still hit me with the hard guitar. I mean, yeah, there's only so much he could do. He's got to hit me with the damn thing.
Hmm.
So even from anybody, me hitting somebody, and even Balls Mahoney, the chair shots and stuff like that. I mean, those are brutal at the
Yeah.
time. I mean, thank God, I say thank God they don't do them. Well, they still do them in AEW, but the WWE cut it off. But sometimes you wonder, like all these years, one day I didn't break my neck getting it,
Hmm.
so hard. Not even top of your head. So
Is there any particular ECW moments that mean something special to you personally
ECW, one of the moments, I don't know if there's like a
that you
favorite.
were involved with, or your career that means something to you personally?
Well, the ECW means something to me because it's something that I got involved in and not knowing, that's 1990. Well, think about it. I got involved with ECW in 1993 when it was Eastern Championship Wrestling
Hmm.
with Cairo and Nikolai Volkov back then. I was there for a while before going to Japan. That's why I had a connection with Todd Gordon
Hmm.
before going back there when Paul Lee did it. Before I did, then I went to Japan and everything. Then I went back there. So, ECW was always, like close to me. It's not, I don't think I have a favorite, like a moment, I mean, winning titles and certain people I worked with in certain arenas. But it was like I said, it's a place that got me my start on TV where, I first felt like I had to learn how to work the cameras and know how to face the hard camera. You
Hmm.
work differently. That's an extra. People don't realize it when you start working on TV. You got to remember certain things and not to get in the way of certain things on TV. So not only you got to remember in your match, you remember trying to keep the people involved. You're also trying not to get in the way of the cameras and all that kind of stuff. So, a lot goes into it. So, and I learned all that stuff from ECW. By the time I got to WWE, I understood that stuff. I understood working the cameras and I never, got in the way. So, but no, I did the whole ECW itself because it's where I started. Means something to me. It's not no one favorite match, one favorite moment. A lot of great times, great memories. You know. So
Was it hard seeing when ECW was going to shut down, being there as long as you were? Was that difficult for you? Did you know what you wanted to do next?
um, when it closed down,
Yeah, when it started closing down, did you know what you was that a difficult time period for you, or did you know what you wanted to do after ECW was closing down?
I don't know. I think everybody was. Well, I wouldn't say in shock. I wouldn't say in
Mm-hmm.
shock. But, it was. Let's see. You knew it's coming. You got to understand too. I did which a lot we didn't even talk about this. I did the merchandise office and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So. Yeah, so I used to work towards the end. I was working in the merchandise office with Dreamer and everybody, and we like so I kind of knew merchandise wasn't coming in. We weren't really working as much, so and things were going down. So I kind of like we all knew it was the end. I think there's a big video online about that, about that match and all of us coming to the ring in the end. We all knew. Where was that? Arkansas?
I
I
think so.
think
I'd
that.
have to look that up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm pretty sure it was Arkansas. That was the last match. I think I wrestled Dreamer and Danny Doring. I did a tag match. I don't think Tracy and Tommy were there. They didn't bring the whole crew in. They had a show for those people.
Hmm.
Uh, we kind of all knew it was over, but we didn't know. But and it was hard because WCW closed down too. So now you got ECW closed down. 2 weeks later, WCW closes down. So the only place to go is WWE. Now you got all these high contracts. I got left with a bunch of all these top guys from WCW with guarantee contracts, and all these top ECW guys that have no jobs.
Hmm.
So I wasn't able to get in there. So, but I mean, the good thing was because of where I lived, I used, I was on TV as Little Guido for 4 years. ECW was hot then. Now it just closed down, so the TV was still strong. And I live in the New York area, so many guys were running shows in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, and so every weekend I was busy. I was making money and everything.
Hmm.
And I was hoping to get into WWE one day now, when you asked me before, did I ever, hope I really can keep doing this? That point in my life is with a point that for a couple of years it stalled on me. And
Hmm.
then I did want to do it, but, I was, like I couldn't get in. So I was starting to find other jobs. I got a job with Snapple, selling Snapple and and this is a couple of years in. ECW closed in 2000. I didn't go to WWE in 2000, the end of 2002. So
Hmm.
after the first year and a half, things started to dry up. Indies weren't as busy. Nobody wanted to use me because you used me already 20 times in the past year and a half, 2 years, So now it was time to start looking for something, 'cause still, the business was changing. And then I got a call from WWE.
And how
Finally.
was that feeling for them to call you and want you to come work for them? How did you feel at that point in time?
Well, I was relieved, I was relieved, but that, Paul Heyman, I give credit to for that. He's the one that helped and had a big part of getting me in there, So he reached out to me actually and mentioned that, and he said, so somebody will be calling you, answer your phone. Okay. And they told me twice. Sure enough, the next day, they called me, they offered me a tryout. And and I told them I was working because they said I had a job with Snap at that moment. It was Johnny Ace. And they goes, all right, he goes, can you we want to bring you in 3 weeks. I said, that's fine. He said, I'll get off, I'll be there. They sent me plane tickets. I was in, and they sent me to, Texas. We did Dallas. I did two house shows, one versus Funaki and one versus Johnny Stamboli. And I did those SmackDown and Raw dark matches versus those guys, and then they offered me something that night. You know, so I think I had the job anyway, but they made me do the dark matches. And,
Yeah.
I think I was in already, but I didn't say it. I just went whatever they said. you know,
Do you
so
feel accomplished at that point in time?
well, what you do, you feel like you made just like making it to, a major league team.
Hmm.
At the time there was no bigger. There's nowhere bigger. Yes, okay. I'm not saying Japan, but even in Japan, there's no bigger company than WWE.
Hmm.
Unless football could be one. There's a couple that might be, or especially at that time. So yeah, it felt like I was, but then, you always know it's going to end one day, and that always happens, and that's just the way it is for most of the people.
Did they tell you what they wanted to bring you in for and what direction they wanted to go with you, or was it just touch and feel, or did they have the idea of why they wanted to hire you specifically?
Like I said, I don't know exactly why. Well, I know. I think Paul put a good word in for me and was pushing to bring me in, and they were going to start doing the cruiserweight thing too. So
Hmm.
so when I first started going there, I did dark matches for a couple months just under Little Guido. Like I was just going out there, and they wouldn't put me on TV. I was at all the matches, and they were using me a lot in New York and stuff because I did the ECW thing. So I had the ECWs of not that could have popped 20,000 people, but I still, even though I wasn't on TV, but they were using me on all the house shows, just to use me, keep me working. And so I don't think the question was, did they have an idea? I don't know if they had the idea, but all of a sudden they came to me with the FBI thing. They wanted to, I mean, like I said, I was just doing the dark matches and stuff, and they changed my name to Nunzio, and they wanted to put me with Stamboli and Palumbo, and I think that's how it happened. I think that pretty much happened right off the bat,
Hmm.
going with Chuck and Johnny, and so that was good. Me being with those guys put us in a way we were able to work with Undertaker. We were able to work with a lot of top guys, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle. Only because I had these two guys. The cruiserweights were doing their thing in the cruiserweight division, and that's where I would be. But I end up getting with these guys that were getting me out of the cruiserweight thing for now. So it was
Hmm.
getting a little longevity. I was doing this other stuff as a manager with these guys, doing 6-man tags, and once in a while we're managing. And then that lasted for a couple of years, and I did the FBI thing. And they ran with that for a little while. We did stuff with Vince McMahon. We did stuff with Hogan and stuff. When we did Vince hired us to go. When Hogan came back as Mr. America, he was wearing a
Hmm.
mask and all that stuff. So it gave me a little extra. And then when they left, I was able to be a fresh man in the cruiserweight group, which kept me there longer.
Is there any favorite, moment when you were doing the FBI thing?
You mean between ECW, WWE, or?
In WWE at this time?
Well, there's a lot of. I mean, we were able to work with all the top guys, and we had great times with APA. We did tag matches with them. We did tag matches with, I believe, in Madison Square Garden. I believe we did a 6-man versus Taker, Brock Lesnar, and I want to say Kurt Angle. Or maybe it was two of them versus, and now maybe I was managing. I may have it a little mixed up, but it was fun. We were out there with them. Um, yeah, so that was it. So there's a lot of good, great memories as far as that goes.
How was it now that you're in WWE, you're established, now you're in video games, there's action figures. How was all that to you personally? 'Cause, there's like three big things. You get to WWE, the figures are forever, the video games are forever, your name is forever.
Well, it's forever because of the internet. You know,
Hmm.
people like even when I do shows, you get these 10-year-old kids that will call me little Guidos, and it's simply because you could just go back and watch ECW, and it's like brand new to them. Even though so the internet keeps my name out there definitely 100%. Yeah, all my action figures, that was all great with royalties. I'm only in a couple of video games, believe it or not. WWE never put us in a game. I'm in no video games with WWE. So, but I have ton of action figures, cards and all that stuff that they put me in board games and stuff like that. And I have them all. There's actually, that's my son with the cruiserweight title. When I was, can you see it or not?
Yeah, I can see it.
Are you in it? Is he in it? Is
Yeah,
that it right there?
yeah.
That was 2005. Now he's 21. He keeps up there. I don't know if you're able to see it though.
I can see it. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, there. Yeah, no.
How did it feel, when WWE put faith in you and put the cruiserweight title on you? Was that a good feeling for you personally that they wanted you to represent the company as a cruiserweight champion?
Well, sure. Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. I did it. One time they did it. I didn't even bring it back to the United States. They gave me a run in. I think I beat Paul London in Connecticut. But then they gave it to me again in Rome. I think in Rome, I won it on a house show that they showed clips of it on SmackDown the following week. But then I lost it in England. So we did a whole loop. We did Italy and stuff. We did Milan, we did Rome, and I won the belt. And then we wrestled in like 5 other cities in Italy, and then a couple other cities in Germany or England, which led into TV in England or something. And I lost it to Hoovy in England. They had on TV the following week. So one time I never brought it back to the United States. I won it overseas and lost it overseas. It was only like for 8 days. Had Tommy Rich for 6 days. He had the NWA title. And then they gave me a run with it in Connecticut a few months. So, but it was good. It felt good. Anytime they put a belt on you, they have faith in you.
Mhm.
So, but it was a cruiserweight title. Unfortunately, Vince didn't really see much in that. But they had a lot of guys that did. They had, I believe Court at the time was in charge of the cruiserweights, and he did a lot of pushing for us, but there was only so with Court Bear from MLW. There's only so much that he could do. The Valley has. They want to, they all he gets 9 minutes on the show, and then so but yeah, it's what it was.
Do you have a favorite singles match or moment during your time in WWE?
Well, I had a lot of singles matches with Tajiri and Super Crazy in ECW and WWE. Well, some of my favorite matches. One of them was, I mean, when I say favorite, they're definitely not barn burners, but like what entertaining to me and fun. Like, and they're bigger guys, believe it or not. It's just because of the thrill of being out there with them. But like, as far as like Batista, that was a lot of fun because we did champion versus champion. I was a cruiserweight champion, and they did a little angle with it. We did promos and I'm like I'd take on any comers. I got nobody in the cruiserweight division, So the general manager, I think it was Teddy Long. He made a match champion versus champion, and then when they told me it was Batista, they're all like, oh my God, what are you kidding me? I can't wrestle him. But just those moments, yes, they're not 5-star matches, but they're a good amount of time. I get a good amount of offense because of I got my two guys with me
Mm-hmm.
helping, and it gives them. So like these are good times. Favorite matches, like I had some good ones with. Well, that's good ones with Van Dam, but that's ECW. That would be ECW. But I would say, like, even with Shannon Moore, me and Jamie, me and Hurricane, all of us. That was a fun era.
Oh
It
yeah.
was more me, Hurricane, Chavo, Noble, Tajiri, Super Crazy at one time, Akio, Funaki. Those are. I'm definitely missing a couple.
Yeah, that era
Matt
was
Hardy
very
was with us.
underrated.
Matt Hardy was with us for a while, but he moved into main event status. But yeah, well, he was doing a little cruiserweight stuff, I think, with us towards the end, like, and not too much, but it was becoming bigger, at that
Hmm.
time. So,
I always feel like that era of you guys, talent was so underrated.
but well, yeah, but I was just trying to get on a 2-hour show, you got 9 cruiserweights trying to get on a 2-hour show, and you only got 8 minutes, 9 minutes at that time. Which what is great. It's different now, like AEW. There's a lot of cruiserweights. These guys all get time. Doesn't matter. I don't think there is cruiserweights really. Everybody. Now smaller guys work with the bigger guys.
Hmm.
But it's good. It's good. That's about it. That's my career.
When your release came, was that something that you
Never
saw
really.
coming?
You know what? I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming at that time. Um, but I mean, I was there while things were stale. I was sick. Now I take it back. 'Cause, if I think about it, I'm going back 2026, 2008. That was like 20 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, there was a point I was sitting home a lot, getting paid. And whenever that happens, yeah, that's always great sitting home getting paid, but not in the wrestling business. That's
Yeah.
not good. In the real world, you don't sit home and get paid. In wrestling, you're doing that. That means they ain't have nothing for you. You don't want to sit home and get paid. You want to be working. So they did sit me home for a bit, but sometimes they like to do that and they have ideas, but don't tell you because they got 150 other things on their mind. They forget that they're sitting you home and not
Hmm.
telling you what's going on. They're not really worried about it, but they do have plans for you. But you on the other end are sitting home
Yeah.
saying, oh, did I have me in mind? Am I in the release? But I wasn't sitting home for that long. So, you know, but Johnny did too. I wasn't ready at the time. In 2007, the end of 2000, this is like 4 or 5 months before my release, Johnny actually asked me if I would be interested. Johnny asked me if I would be interested at that time they had Kentucky was their developmental
Hmm.
Louisville. That's when they had it in Louisville, and he came to me and he's like, "Hey, would you ever think about training the guys and blah blah blah?" And now, my son at that time was only I don't know. I don't know if I could go to Louisville. He was only like 4 at the time. My wife was
Hmm.
working school and stuff like that. We were living in New York, so and I was like, I still had a job with WWE, but I think that was a feeler to see. I think
Hmm.
he, and I look at it afterwards where he probably is like, I'm going to cut this guy, but let me see, maybe he wants to come. Now, if that was in my area, because there was a point there was talk many years ago that they were going to do a school in Connecticut.
Hmm.
That was Yeah, but the problem is it's too expensive and they can't afford to live in Connecticut. They
Yeah.
want to pay these guys like they could do developmental in Louisville and stuff, and you get an apartment for $500 and you put four guys in there and they're cool and happy to be there. And, and you can't in Connecticut, you're looking at 3,000 a month.
Yeah.
So it wasn't feasible for WWE, but there was talk, and I would have loved to be part of that. I live 20 minutes from their office, right down the street. That would be perfect. So.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all for not taking that opportunity
Well, at
to
that
go
time,
to.
I still was young. I
Yeah.
still wanted to, I mean, even when I did get released, I got a lot of opportunities in Japan, and I did a lot of stuff. That I was on TV between ECW and then out WWE for 7 years. Now is the time to get on the road and start collecting on all because it's only going to last a few years.
Yeah.
You got to know that's coming. And I was, I was paying attention to that too, seeing because I knew it was going to slow down like it did with ECW. Yeah,
Mhm.
well, the clothes, yeah, everybody wanted to use you because you're fresh. And, long as you're off TV, it's just the way it works, you know?
Yeah. How
So
did when you went back for a little bit to do the officiating, how'd that come to be, and did you enjoy doing that?
it was all right. It came to be because there was a snowstorm in New York City, and a lot of the referees and wrestlers didn't show up.
Hmm.
Uh, but they had no referees, and I got a call from Tommy Dreamer because I guess he was working back in the office then, and they asked what I'm doing. I said nothing. What's going on? He's like, well, can you get to the garden? And there's a blizzard out there. I'm like, but I mean, it wasn't as bad yet. But flying in was causing problems.
Yeah.
But driving wasn't that bad yet because now he's calling me at like 12 o'clock. One whatever it was, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's snowing, but it's not. You still could drive, but. And then I said, all right, I'll try. I packed my stuff. I got down to the garden, parts in the garage, and then that's how it is. Did it that day, that night. I saw actually Vince McMahon was there on a house show, but he was there at Madison Square Garden. Talked to him for about 5 minutes. He asked how I'm doing. He asked what I've been doing, and I've been talked to him for a few minutes, and then that was it. After the show, I did. We all left, and then Johnny called me a few days later during the week. He's like, "Hey, how'd everything go? How'd you like it?" He said he'd be sending me a check. Because I didn't really talk about money yet or anything. I called last minute, went there and did it. No, I didn't even ask that night. I just left. Everybody was leaving. There was a storm going on. It was a fucking disaster. I wouldn't
Hmm.
even care. Send me a check. Wouldn't even matter to me. But then I got a call from Johnny. A couple months, couple weeks, couple days later and just asked me how it was and would I be interested in testing it out? And they gave me a 3 month, 90 days, and it seemed all right. And then they signed me for a year, and then I did the year, and then that was it.
So how's life been after WWE?
It's all right. I do other things. I run a security company I have up in New York. That's what I do during the week. I take some indies. I do seminars on the weekends and stuff. So that's it. So I'm doing all right.
How does it feel that everyone still loves Little Guido Nunzio to this day?
Well, yeah, I don't know if everyone still does, but you know, it's still, I would never have known all these years later, still getting booked. My calendar is almost every weekend. I pretty much have something. I don't really, honestly, I don't call for bookings. I really
Hmm.
don't. They come in, and a lot has to do with where I live. I think I may have said this earlier. Where I live, so many people are running shows. You know,
Hmm.
it's not like anybody has to fly me in. I don't really do flights anymore. People still call to fly in, but just for now on, with the way the flights are now and stuff, it's just a pain in the neck. You
Yeah.
know, I'd rather just drive a couple hours and do this and do the Northeast where I live, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, you know, just and then do my regular gig.
I think you've earned that.
Yeah. So my parents, I've said this 1,000 times. Any wrestler that wants to be a wrestler, inspired to be a wrestler, get an education. You're
Hmm.
gonna need that one day. And I don't know if I talked about that earlier in the show because I talked about it with somebody else. But nowadays they want those papers, get them.
Yeah.
You know,
If
because
someone wants to book you,
huh?
I'm sorry, what?
You're gonna need them one day.
Oh yeah.
You know, you're gonna have to go find a job, and you know the pro wrestling thing's gonna be cool, and they may think it's cool, but at one point they might need certain documents to offer you something.
Hmm.
You got to go to college, you need education. That's what I'm saying.
If someone wanted to book you for a show, what would be the best way to do that?
You go to my, I have my Instagram,
Hmm.
Nunzio slash Guido, or Guido under slash Nunzio. You'll find it. You could follow me on that. And that's it. You private message me. I get messages there. Yeah, if anybody's interested, that's how you do it.
I just want to say thank you for taking the time out tonight. Thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling and what you continue to do, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
If there's ever anything that I can do, please feel free to reach out.
Yes, I will. Thanks for
Thank
having
you,
me.
sir.